David Feng with you, getting mileage the traditional way, using a car. Now, for a very long time in Beijing, if you wanted any real mileage, you had to use a car. The subway network was just simply minuscule. We had like 2 lines under 100 kilometers, obviously, and it was just really very much central Beijing and a fair bit of like western Beijing. If you wanted to get anywhere, you had, of course, to use a car. These days, though, the subway is far more visible with, I think it's like, have we nearly 30 lines and over 400 stations across the entire network. And so now this modal shift from car to rail to metro is actually happening. And so the car, increasingly these days, they're becoming automated, like this robotaxi here, and they take you to places which are actually far more reachable by train. I'm actually off again on one of my classic, hop on board and record sessions to Yizhuang railway station, which is now high speed and subway as well. Until quite recently, the subway network was very much restricted, but over the past decades, in terms of mileage, it was no longer restricted. It's just simply a case of like, how much more can we add? We have now over 900 kilometers, specifically 909 kilometers. And when you think about it, the question is, where will it take us next? Later this year, we're going to open line 22, the Pinggu line going into nearby Hebei, and then the branch line to line 1 is coming up in the years ahead. And we might well hit 1,000 kilometers next year. And so when you think about it, when you think about the dimensions of the Beijing subway, and you add also to the fact that we're getting a few new stations on the Beijing suburban railway network, well, not as sleek or as regular service as the Zurich S-Bahn I'm very much used to, but still very much a thing. Commuter rail is very much becoming a thing in more and more parts of this enormous country. There's even maybe a USB port where you can like charge up as you head towards the office or to somewhere else. And so it incentivizes going there by public transport far more than anything else. So with the Beijing subway opening the newest station, Tongyunmen, literally today on the 30th of June 2026, we're taking a look at the subway, which is continuing to expand even more across not just the Chinese capital itself, but in the immediate surrounding geographies. So the fact is, in this day and age, as the car increasingly becomes something that is no longer really obligatory, and people are going by rail either locally or across borders even, there really is a green modal shift. And countries like China in particular, they kind of tell people how it kind of works by actually building the network itself. I am aware that some lines aren't seeing trains every 5 minutes, and that's to be expected. Like, even if you take a look at Zurich, the S-Bahn network is not a train every 3 or 5 minutes. Some parts of a route have trains every half an hour or every 1 hour or so. But that's to be expected. You have the countryside and you have the megalopolises. And what actually you think about this? If you have a train every 5 minutes on every single line, it's a bit overkill. It's a little bit in terms of like, I've lived in big cities and in smaller towns alike, and sometimes you do need a little bit of peace and quiet. Balsberg. So the question goes back to, will we still need cars going into the future? Even with rail being a big player, I think the car is still going to be needed in some circumstances, some situations, like when you want a lot of privacy, that's the first thing. And second of all, when you're going to a remote destination that only has a limited number of train services. That being said, China is thinking about that as well. In fact, at quite a number of tourist resorts in central China and otherwise, if you can present your same-day railway tickets digitally or in any other way, you actually get reduced or more preferential ticketing policies as a way to thank you for coming by rail. So at the end of the day, you may just take that journey by train. Even if you have lots of cars, EVs and otherwise, on the roads, the train does actually make a lot more sense at the end of the day.